Before Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Crave, all of these movie streaming services, you had to go to a physical store to rent your movies. And as that experience fades out of existence, there's one person who's keeping that dream alive, and that is Ken Tisher, the owner of the last Blockbuster on Earth. And today, Ken is joining us on Y2KNostalgiK to talk about what it's like to be the owner of the last Blockbuster on Earth, as well as the nostalgic vibes of going to a physical movie rental store. So please hit that subscribe button, drop us a like, help us grow the community so we can get even more nostalgic guests on the show. But with no further ado, it's time to get nostalgic, Blockbuster edition. So the first section that we'll go into here, Ken, that I wanted to talk a little bit about is the story of the last Blockbuster. So to start things off, could you take us back to the beginning and maybe talk a little bit about when and why you decided to start up a movie rental store?
I had worked for a couple other people, helping them get their businesses going, and you know, I liked doing what I was doing. One of them was a irrigation company that manufactured low volume irrigation products. Another one was a food handling equipment manufacturer. At the end of the day, it wasn't very satisfactory working for other people as I was getting a little older. And this opportunity came up to maybe try doing something totally different. And my wife at the time was very instrumental in getting us going and making contact with the different people to get us started. And we had decided to move from California to Oregon, and that was kind of how it all got started. We came up and started from scratch a video store called Pacific Video at the time in Bend. And it was a time of consolidation of a lot of small video stores into bigger video stores. And when I say consolidation, I don't think it was the small store's choice. I think what was happening was the bigger stores, as we ended up being one of the bigger stores, came in, and a lot of them weren't able to compete. It wasn't our intention, but that's what happened.
Before you converted to a Blockbuster, you were Pacific Video?
We were Pacific Video for 10 years. We started in 1990.
Okay.
And had a fellow who helped us a lot, Brad Maples, who was with Major Video, and he gave us some good insight. He was kind of consultant on getting us started with our own business. And so it was very helpful, he and his brothers, and it was one of those rare businesses. I didn't know it at the time, but I understand it's rare as I come to be in business more and more that we started and actually cash flowed from day one, which was amazing. And so we did it for 10 years as Pacific Video, and then Blockbuster came along and made us an offer we couldn't refuse. They said, well, we really want more stores up in the Northwest, and we'd like you to convert. Long story behind all that, you know, and in the litigation and stuff that the independents were going through with Blockbuster, because we were getting shut out of the revenue share portion of it. That's a whole nother story. But we decided to go ahead and do it, since it was like I said, an offer that we couldn't refuse. They promised to put 2 stores in a town that I already had 2 stores in, and they had an existing store.
Okay.
Yeah, they had an existing store, and the deal was I would convert, but I would only convert if they would sell me their store, because I didn't want to compete against a corporate store, and they agreed to do that, and you know, exacted a price for it. But you know, it was all good. We struggled probably for 6 months to a year after we switched, because people really liked Pacific Video. We knew what we were doing, but when they switched to revenue sharing, we could not compete because the studios would not allow the independents to be on revenue sharing with them. And that's what the litigation was about. And they eventually got it all worked out. But by that time, we were well on our way with Blockbuster and very happy with them at the time. Took a while to get happy with them because from running your own business and having absolute control to being a franchisee is a bit of a different story.
I can imagine there's a little bit more chain of people or chain of events you have to go through to get decisions made and stuff like that.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But they were good, Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
The people at the time at Blockbuster were quite helpful and were very good at getting us transitioned over. And they didn't. Blockbuster was wanting to have more franchisees, and so they streamlined the process for us. And for a long time, we didn't have all the Blockbuster colors. They let us keep our own equipment and stuff. And over time, we gradually phased it out and became a total Blockbuster store.
Being the owner of a Blockbuster, what was your experience in terms of running a movie rental store over the years, and what was your favorite part about running a Blockbuster or a movie rental store?
The employees were the best thing about the business that I've always thought, and interacting with the different people and helping them reach their goals and that kind of stuff was fun. The customers were great, and dealing with people and interacting with people was my favorite part. Of course, my then wife and I love movies, and that's why we got started in the whole thing. And then having people working for us who also love movies was great. And we used to talk a lot about movies, and just we had I don't know, get-togethers. I wouldn't call them parties all the time. With at the time, I still do. I call them all kids, but some of them were at the time as old as I was who worked for us. But they were all our kids, and it's been great to see them do well over the years. So that's kind of the personal side of it. As far as running the business, it was fun learning how to order movies, how to predict what people would want, how to figure out your cash flow and what you could afford and how you could do it. That was a very interesting part of it, starting something new, getting it up and running. And it was almost like having two different businesses, one when we started with Pacific Video, and then as we switched over to Blockbuster, and learning new routines and how they liked to do business and what they did. I'll have to say, owning it totally yourself was one thing, and then being part of a franchise, being a franchisee was a totally different, but still good experience with working with good people. It was later on that as I talked to other franchisors, or franchisees, I got a little jaded about the management. And I still think to this day, I mentioned that book to you by my friend Alan Payne, who had a number of Blockbusters, and he finally, after he closed his last one up in Alaska, he wrote the book Built to Fail. And his take on it is, if Blockbuster had paid more attention to the people who actually had skin in the game and were running the stores, they'd still be going today instead of my being the last store. So that's a long-winded, convoluted explanation of, it was very interesting, and I love doing it now, and I still love the employees and our customers, and they're what makes the world go round. Bend is an amazing place to do this kind of stuff because the movie business. There's a lot of people who love movies here and who do a good job. I'm using the word love about 20 times too much, but they really do enjoy it and have supported us throughout. Bend, at the time when I had 4 stores here in Bend, the population was at the most 50,000, maybe 60, and it's now pushing
Oh
100,000.
wow.
But people who were in the Blockbuster business said, "You're crazy. You can't have that many stores in a town of that little population." But we drew from a wider area, and people love movies, and we did very well with it. Yeah.
No, that's interesting because I've always thought of like movie rental stores and that at least locally as a big community place in terms of where it was a place
Right.
where people gathered who shared an interest and one of my favorite personal experiences of the movie rental store was the conversations you get into with the employees there and other people who shared similar interests to you in that, whereas now when you kind of watch everything from home, unless the people are sitting on the couch with you at home, you don't really get that visiting or community
Yes.
interaction
Yes.
feel with it.
When one thing that always I never well, it's human nature, and I don't know if it's akin to nostalgia, but I was always surprised at when the movie came out, and this has been a few years since this phenomenon has kind of gone away, but people would wait for that movie to come out, and there'd be all kinds of word of mouth between, one another. Well, you're going to see this, you're going to see this, and then on Tuesday, when the movies finally dropped at the stores, there was a line usually in the morning to get that movie. Now, again, I've been at it 30 years, so I'm talking. This has been a while,
No way.
and the studios had definite dates, and it was quite interesting. And then, as you mentioned, it was a community gathering place, and Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, you could walk around and hear all these conversations and people, hailing across the store to somebody else saying, "Hey, what are you doing? Where you been the past week or so?" I mean, it was everybody knew everybody. It was a much smaller town then too. Um, but it was fun. It was like you said, a real sense of community.
There was a shift where you started seeing things like streaming, DVR, and that kind of come in, and it kind of put a wrench in the movie rental stores kind of like plan in that. So do you want to talk a little bit about what kind of led up to that point and kind of like the little bit of the transition point?
Yes, it was a combination of events. The studios initially did not like us renting movies,
Oh,
and
okay.
they came to like us. They came to like us more and more as they started making money from, they were making more money getting the movies out to the video store than and sometimes they were in the theaters. And then it became interesting as things started to change. The studios didn't like that either, and they fought it. They fought the DVRs, being able to record product and leave it. They didn't like that. They didn't like initially Netflix or whoever at Redbox.
Hmm.
It was kind of interesting that they were always kind of the big brother being drug along in this whole thing, and then when they figured out they could make money off of it, all of a sudden, it was good. It was fun. But yeah, the initial hit to the video store was the DVR, the digital video recorder that you could time shift when you wanted to watch stuff. And in theory, people only have so many hours a day where they can devote to be, sitting in front of a
Hmm.
TV screen, or now a phone screen, or whatever screen they choose to use to watch movies. Um, but I think that was the initial shift where we started to see we weren't the only game in town. There were other ways to time shift. If you hark back and think back long enough, probably before your time, Curtis, you're a young guy, but you couldn't get the movies. The movies were unavailable, and when they came out with VHS and VCRs, and the studios and video stores kind of had interactions on whether it was legal, whether it wasn't legal, and for us to do what we were doing, video stores to do what they were doing. But otherwise, those movies, well, unless the theaters decided to re-release them. And so you just didn't see them. And if you remember some of the, speaking of nostalgia, back in grade school or even middle school or high school, it was a big thing. The fundraisers then were often renting a movie from the studio. Somebody would get the movie and show it at a get together at
Okay.
school or some other kind of thing. And that was the only way you saw the movies. You couldn't they just the studios didn't send that movie back to the theater, nor did the theater want it all the time. They wanted new movies. So, but anyway, I digress. But
No, that's
when VCRs and VHSs hit, that was huge. It was big.
yeah. I was gonna say it's interesting, and it's something that like I know I didn't really connect like right away, just because I always saw like movie rentals as something that was available. But it's
Yes,
interesting
right.
to talk and see about how much of an impact actually like VHS's home video and movie rental stores originally had on the movie
Yes,
theater industry.
yes, yes. And they did have a lot of impact on the industry, and it was as I'm sure. I don't know. I can't imagine that many of them would say it wasn't a very positive impact. It really helped their bottom
Hmm.
lines and their revenue, and it was a phenomena that gave people something else to do on Friday night and Saturday night, and that's why it was so huge for uh, really up until 2006, 2007 uh, is when that in well, it was a recession. I guess it wasn't a depression. It was a recession, and usually the video stores did quite well. But that was when the change come where we didn't actually blossom during that recession. And I think up until that point, the video and the Blockbusters of the world and the Hollywoods and the other movie rental places were quite happy and were doing very well. And the 2008 2007 recession kind of changed that reasons. We're expecting to do better. We're expecting, wow, this is going to be great for us, as recessions and downturns had always been great for the video business because we provided expensive entertainment. But that was the same time that DVRs are well established. And then
Hmm.
Netflix was on the scene. Other people were on the scene. And it was a real tumultuous time for us. And that's really when to my opinion, of thinking, the video business started trending downward at a pretty rapid rate as other things picked up. Um, I think it's in times of change like that people are more open to different experiences, trying Netflix, and I think it's much. We're talking about nostalgia here, and I think what has happened with this last
Hmm.
um, issue we had the last year and a half, the pandemic, is that um, people have been open to change. They've been sitting at home and going, wow, I wish this were different, that were different. And then Blockbuster comes along and we're the last one, or we come along as the last Blockbuster. And people just are going, wow, it's, I think that's been a big part of our success is the nostalgia maybe brought on or encouraged the pandemic, if that makes any sense. People are looking for a happy story out of all this stuff. Yeah, and we were on pretty much every TV channel there was, and the newspapers, and it was a good story, and people like to read it. And I have a wonderful woman who runs the store for me, as you've probably seen if you saw the documentary we did, the
Hmm.
last Blockbuster, and she was kind of the center of that. And so people really struck a chord with people. So uh, I'm it's good and it's been successful. It's been a happy event for us.
I can't remember if I first saw the news of the documentary or if I was watching what's the one game show. I was watching it with my mom, and I believe your
What's
man.
my line?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And when I saw it on there, I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting," because I know I've always been a huge fan of movie rental stores, and I've always thought like even like from a perspective, it would be fun just to open up one for a couple days, kind of as a social experiment.
Sure.
So when I heard that there's still a Blockbuster up and running, I got extremely excited, and I think you're 100% correct with your talking about there. I
Yes.
wanted to talk a little bit and see kind of what it was that kept you, keeping the movie rental store open, because there was a lot of other movie rental stores, whether they were Blockbuster or smaller individually owned, that over the next 10 or 14 years shut their doors. So I wanted to talk to you and see, what it was that made you keep yours open and still open to this day.
It's a great question. We, at the time of the 2002, 2008, had 4 operating stores, and they were all doing well. But coming out of 2007, 2008, I think by 2010, we may have closed our first store. I think at one time we had 5 open stores. But it started to decline, and what I believe saved us here in Bend, Oregon, was the fact that I had 4 stores in town. And the first thing I did was moved one of them to a smaller town nearby, and so then we were down to 3, and in Bend, and then 2 other nearby towns, and business being what it was, as we had to close stores due to lack of business, due to lack of interest and income, we were able to consolidate a lot of that business into one store. So instead of having 4 stores, and let's just pick a number,
Oh, okay.
100,000 customers, as we closed stores and lost customers, if the one store had a quarter of that, let's say 25,000, well, we consolidated and were able to have maybe 35 or 40,000. We didn't keep them all, obviously. They were off going other places, but it helped us in that one store survive that one store. And then we had another one in a small town nearby that we kept open probably longer than we should have. And we closed it when the handwriting was on the wall for it. And so then we were down one store, and the trend line wasn't good for what we were doing. And my friend up in the last stores up there, he made it a economic decision to close those stores, and that made us the last store. And it was kind of serendipitous. There's no doubt about it. We may well have been closed had he not closed now, if he had not chosen to do his store, because I was blown away by the amount of publicity and goodwill that people extended us being the last store, which it feeds right back into your nostalgia thing. People loved their experience when they were younger at going to the store. And these I'm talking about were kids and teenagers who went to the store with their folks, or or met their friends there, and they come in every day of the week and bring their kids in and say, "Hey, this is what we used to do. This is where we got our entertainment. This is where we got movies." And some of the kids are really in tune, and they go, "Wow, that's really interesting. You mean you actually, had this or had that," and ask questions. And other ones will say, "Well, why would you do that? You can just watch it on your phone. What do you mean?" So it's interesting, but yeah.
It's interesting to see kind of like how there's and that's the one thing I always find entertaining about kids, is usually they say it how they see it. They don't buttercoat anything, and it's funny how some will see it for the experience that it is and kind of understand the importance that it has, to family members and that, whereas others just straight facts. This is just
Yeah. What Why would I want to be in here? I wouldn't come do that. But at the time, it was, the only alternative for them. And
Hmm.
I have, no problem with Netflix or any of those things evolve, and stuff happens, and they'll have their day, and something else will come along to supplant them. We'll all have a chip in our ear somewhere implanted in our in our head. We'll watch movies that way. I don't. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah, you never know. If you want to just talk a little bit about, what was the kind of shift that you saw when you switched from being, one of the last few blockbusters to the final blockbuster?
When it actually happened, when we actually became the last blockbuster in the United States or North America, uh, we immediately received a lot of publicity. And I don't really know the genesis of it, um, but all of a sudden it snowballed. I wish I knew exactly. We've talked about with some of the staff at the store. What was the point? The John Oliver show had sent um, some Russell Crowe memorabilia up to Allen in Alaska in his stores, and he had, I guess Russell Crowe had an auction.
No, very neat.
Oh, this stuff gets complicated. Doing something with a lot of his movie memorabilia, something to do with his divorce. I don't know, but at any rate, um, for some reason, that John Oliver decided they were going to send this Russell Crowe memorabilia that they had bought at auction to help Alan keep Blockbuster alive. And so I think that kind of maybe started the ball rolling on the interest in Blockbuster. John Oliver has a big following, obviously, down here, and so he sent uh, costumes and the Robin Hood's
Okay.
hood and Russell Crowe in there was a Disney movie where he was a boxer, and we have that his jersey and his shorts and all the stuff that Alan then forwarded to us that he loaned to us. He owns it, and we have it displayed in our store, which was kind of fun. And I think maybe the local paper may have picked that up, and somebody else picked that up, and before long, I mean, we had somebody from the New York Times came out and did a story,
Oh, wow.
and they had so much interest in it, they sent somebody out for a week, and they spent a week in Bend looking, seeing what was going on with Bend, what made it so unique. And we had a 2-page spread with pictures in the Sunday paper in the, I think it was in the business section actually. And, a 2-page spread in the New York Times,
Wow.
really, and so it was
That's a
very
big
cool.
honor.
It is. It is. And then different people picked it up. We were on a couple segments of Ellen DeGeneres, and I mean, just a little bit about the media business as that happens too. But nobody wants to be left out, so every send somebody out. We had, you know, every channel on Earth there. Fox News was out there, CNN was out, everybody was there, plus all the major channels, and so it was just a ton of, I don't know if you want to call it publicity or what it was, but it was definitely nostalgic. It was during the pandemic, and people were looking for feel good stories, and that's what really kicked it off, and that's what I didn't really get it, if you will, at the time, how much people how were excited about a feel good story like that, and they wanted to participate and they wanted to come see it, and it's been great. But it was I think I used the word serendipitous before. It was pure serendipity. And then when the
Hmm.
store in Perth, Australia closed, we got the whole round of it all over again. It was just something else somebody could write about. And so it was, were it not for nostalgia effect, I mean, we would be gone. We are still renting movies, probably enough to keep us open, probably, but
Hmm.
the people coming in and buying nostalgic items, t-shirts, sweatshirts, cups, whatever we can think of to sell. And I owe that to Alan. Alan said, "Oh, got to get a lot of these things, and it'll be so busy you're going to have to get a fulfillment house to do it." And we probably should have, but we do it all ourselves. We source all our merchandise locally, and
Oh,
because the
nice.
local people are the ones that have supported us all these years, and so probably 99.9% of the stuff we sell is locally, done locally, or have local contacts somehow. And it's been a real ride, a real adventure. We had Airbnb come in, and they bugged her like 6 months. Well, we need to do something with you. And I'm going, I mean, to myself, I'm thinking, not being very, I don't know. I didn't bother to ask them what they wanted to do. I assumed they wanted to do something I didn't want them to do. So I said no, and they kept bugging us. I said, well, what is it you want to do? You want to put a trailer act, like a movie studio, and have people stay there and come see? No, we want to actually set in the store. And well, I mean, you want us to do this for how long? And you want us to do this all the time, or we're going to carve out a room for you? No. Just want to do it one or two times, one or two nights. And so finally the light bulb came on, and I figured out, well, this was a way for them to get publicity for Airbnb, as well, to help us out with some publicity. And they did a wonderful job. They were excellent people to work with. And I'm thinking, they're going to shoot this and that. And, they rolled in for like 3 nights, and they would film all night long with who portrayed a family, except they were actually Airbnb users, but they were also actors. And
Oh,
so, I
okay.
mean, I can't imagine how much money they spent. Film crews out of Portland. I mean, and I'm going, wow, here I'm with a handheld camera walking around, and this is, a real big production. They were actually filming a
Yeah.
commercial, and as it turns out, as COVID progressed, they were unable really to use that commercial very much. I think it was destined to be an internet commercial. I guess it aired. They won some awards for the commercial. Uh, and so, things like that happened that were like, what? Why? Where'd you come from? Why are you doing this? Well, it was a way to get publicity. I mean, they had also done an overnight stay at the Wienermobile, Oscar Mayer and Barbie's Boo Playhouse and stuff. So it was publicity for them and publicity for us. Win-win.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. So, when people, when they walk into your store, if you want to just give like a little bit of a description, almost like about, for anyone who hasn't walked into a movie rental store in a while or that, just like what can they expect to see when they walk in your front doors?
Great question. And the most common response we get is, "Oh wow, it smells just like they used to smell." It is, the smell gets to them first. I guess it's the candy and the stuff around and the movies. But they say, "This is just what I expected. This is just what I expected." Which
Yeah.
is, you go places and sometimes it's what you expected. Most of the time it's not. But almost to a person, they're all going, "Wow, yeah,
Hmm.
this is," and then they'll turn to their kids or friends, and they'll all go, "Yeah, this is right. Oh, look, let's go browse through the movies," and then they're off, kind of in their own world, and it's really fun to see. You will see, if you come to look at the store, you walk in, there's the employees with our Blockbuster T-shirts on. Honest to goodness, Curtis, we still use the same computers we used when we converted to Blockbuster
Oh, really?
21 years ago. And people who worked Blockbuster in the past sometimes want to come around and see if they can still remember how to do stuff, and we let them. Um, the software is old Blockbuster software. That's one of the things that Blockbuster did wrong. They never upgraded their computer system. They're still, I think half of the system is built on DOS, for pity's sakes. I mean, we aren't even running anything current. employees, former employees, people who know the computers come around and they, wow, this hasn't changed. It's still the same. And over time, stores that have closed have sent us all their used equipment because this stuff you can't buy anymore. It's
Yeah, I was gonna say, like that one is probably one of the biggest shocks to me in terms because that it seems that in terms of businesses, the thing that gets changed the most is usually the technology and the computers. Yes. And that. So I'm happy to hear that it's you guys are still using the original setups and that. That's super interesting.
We are, yeah, and the old IBM computers and we thought we were going crazy when we upgraded to flat screens on the computers on the monitors, but anyway, it's fun to see people come in and do that, and then some people who are kind of we had some people, it might have been from IBM, who were in the store, and they were here with some of their European counterparts, and they couldn't believe that we were still using the same stuff. And some of them didn't even say, well, how do you work this stuff? Oh, it's your equipment. What do you mean? You don't know? No. What is this? Everything is so different now. But it's fun and it serves its purpose. We have a good time with it.
No, that is great to hear about all of that. It's always nice because you picture movie theaters in your head, not movie theaters, movie rental stores in your head, and I'm happy to hear that it lives up to the expectations and what people remember.
It certainly does, and people are always happy to support us, want to support us. Somebody came in, we were low on stock when we had our documentary on Netflix. I think it's still there. I mean, we couldn't. People were coming in the store and they were doing mail order. We couldn't keep merchandise on hand. And this one guy came in and he says, well, I really want to support you. And he bought about $100 worth of candy, because he wanted to support us. I don't know if he secretly liked candy or he was just being nice, but you just get story after story of people like that being very helpful and loving the experience. I think we shared in the documentary that this one fellow walked in the door one day when the lady from the New York Times was there, and he came in and he started looking around and he said, I flew in today to see your store. And we go, oh, great, nice, that's wonderful. I said, I came from Spain and I flew in just for this.
Holy.
And we go, what? And we thought, yeah, you're visiting a friend or something. He said, no, I used to work at a store and I work for an airline now, and so I could travel for free. But he flew in from Spain, and while he was there, he called his ex-boss, who used to be his boss at Blockbuster. They no longer existed. And he was on the phone and he started crying. He was talking to her.
Oh, wow.
He got very emotional. And I think the lady from the Times just kind of stood there and shook her head like, what's going on here? It was just one of those things.
That is like a phenomenal, story and encounter. And it really does just tell, how important, like these movie rental stores were to people. Like
correct.
Yeah. It wasn't just, a four walls in a business. It was way more to that, to the employees, the owners, and the customers who all, got to partake in it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It was a meeting place, community center. It may be the, I don't know, had them up in your area, the Grange, which was, a meeting place for when, people lived out in the country and they got together, and we were kind of a meeting place for people who lived in town. I don't know. It was an experience, definitely.
And that kind of leads into my next question, which I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your thoughts on the whole idea that, that there could be a time, where people won't have had, or I don't know how to word that properly, but, wouldn't have had the experience of going to a movie rental store, people who are younger now, who kind of grew up with streaming, and that's kind of, what are your thoughts on that as a concept?
Well, it is, it's interesting to see them because they come in the store all the time. I mean, there are people who are just out, what's the latest, greatest. People come to Bend. It's a popular tourist spot, popular recreation spot in Oregon, and they hear about the last Blockbuster, and they come in, and they some of them are going, some of them are very, I don't know what the right word is, down to earth. Yeah, I could see where this would be interesting, and other people will go, huh, yeah, so what's the big deal about all this? They just, they just don't get it. We're on a big nostalgia kick in the U.S. right now, and everything is the old-fashioned hamburger, the old-fashioned ice cream, and and I'm old enough to go, what's old-fashioned about ice cream and hamburgers? But there will be a time when there's nobody around left to understand it. I mean, just like you can go tour the auto manufacturing companies now, but there's no more buggy whip companies to tour or carriage makers to tour.
True.
Or things move on, things change, and it's okay. It's the way the world works. I suspect grocery stores have undergone and continue to undergo change, even though that's one of the basic things, commodities. I think you're always going to need groceries, and the stores somewhat stay the same, but they also change. I mean, look at Amazon taking over Whole Foods, and now you get bigger discounts if you're a Prime member and that type of stuff. So life evolves. It's one of the few things that don't get too far off on a political track here, but the politicians never quite seem to evolve. They just they just want to seem stuck in their own patterns of what's in it for me. That's my only political comment. Enough.
Nope. Yeah, it's very true, and I agree that everybody has to change and adapt over time, and embrace these new experiences and that. But there is part of me that really is thankful and enjoys that there's someone like you there at Bend with the Blockbuster who is keeping this experience alive, and so that even if it's just even if it's just a few more people get to see the experience, it's
Sure.
happy and exciting to know that,
Yes. Yeah. And I'm very fortunate to have great staff. You may not have heard the name. There was a motivational guy. Jesus, I think he started back in the 20s and 30s. I don't know, maybe not that far back, but his name was Zig Zigler. And he said, and I read this in one of his books, that he said, everything you do in life will be by and through people. And I somehow took that to heart, and it really is true. I mean, there aren't too many one-man bands out there. I'm certainly not one of them. I have great people around, and Elon Musk or people like that may try to tell you that they're the one made it all by themselves, but they didn't make it all by themselves. They had a lot of help in doing it. And I shouldn't knock Elon. He may be a very personable person. I don't know. I would name some other people, but I don't even want to give them the time of day. So we'll just talk about it. But you do, everything you do is by and through people, and if you can help them and they can help you, and that's the way the world should work, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. I always said that the experiences that you have throughout life and that are only as good as the people that you do them with, and that is kind of how I look at it.
Yes.
So when I'm making films and stuff like that, if I were to make those same videos without my friends and the experience of doing it with other people, it wouldn't be the same story, and that's for sure.
Exactly right.
These are some questions that I thought of that are kind of quick and might be a little bit on the spontaneous side in that, but
Sure.
What is the craziest movie release that you can remember? So you mentioned that people used to line up when movies would come to the store and that. So is there a particular one or two films that you can remember that were like a little bit more over the top than the other ones?
Yes, and now you're going to make me think of what the name of the movie was, but it was Aladdin, and
Okay.
and I'm trying to think who. God, the name just went right out of my head. But they had a huge release party down in Hollywood. Oh shoot! Now this is embarrassing because his name went right out of my mind. You know, huge comedian. He was a great guy. You know, played in a lot of different movies. And you can help me out here.
Robin Williams? Was it
Yes,
Robin Williams?
yes.
Okay.
It was. Who was a fantastic person, and you know had his own way of doing business. But they had he actually appeared at the thing we went to down Hollywood. He, you know, unexpected. Here were our hundreds of us down there, and he comes out and makes a presentation. But that was the biggest surprise, and getting ready, you know, getting to see him and do that, which was amazing. But then back in the store, I think it was SpiderMan and Blockbuster and the movie studios had all these Spider-Man replicas or dummies or whatever you want to call them made up, and you could get one if you bought enough movies or something. And people went crazy about it because what you did is you had them in the store and you did a drawing to see who got the full-size replica of Spider-Man, and that was crazy. That was like amazing. I keep using that word, surprising. Then there was when the first movie released at midnight, and I wish I could think of the name of the movie, but I can't. And we had people, we stayed open so people could get the movie, because usually it dropped on Tuesday, but this was some big movie everybody was looking for. And so at midnight, we got a line out the door, people to get the movies. And it's not as nearly a fun story since I can't remember the name of it, but maybe that says something about the movie. The movies they're making today, I don't know. They, you know, it's an interesting art form. Not to digress too much, but I think the Netflixes and the Amazons of the world have done a real service in letting other talent and people out there make movies and do episodic type things, series, I guess is the word I'm looking for, and there is so much more content, and television itself is so much better than it ever used to be, and I think we owe that to Netflix and Amazon. I got to give them credit where credit's due, and so I don't think we'll ever see the huge releases in the video store that we used to see.
Maybe not. You never know.
That's right.
All right. Well, I think that just about wraps everything up in that for the interview. So thank you, Ken, for taking a moment to chat with us about your story, and that it really is an interesting one, and one that is close to heart, at least for me, and I'm sure many other people.
It was my pleasure, Curtis, and you don't want to get me talking about movies or movie stores too much, because I don't stop talking. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
No worries, anytime in that. And is there any place where people can reach you or show you support in that? I know you mentioned that you have some merchandise in that available for the Blockbuster store.
The website is it's Blockbuster Ben. The last Blockbuster it's just a nice site someone maintains, but I think you just look up Last Blockbuster, and it'll shoot you to Last Blockbuster bin, or type in Blockbuster bin, and we love to be supported. We love to have the orders and you know, send something to people who they like to have and they'll wear, and it's fun.
Awesome to hear. I know I'll definitely be taking a browse through myself.
There you go. Okay.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we should have some more episodes out next week, but otherwise, thank you for watching, and it's definitely been a fantastic interview there with you, Ken, and so with that, I think we'll say goodbye.
Okay, take care now.
It's a wrap, yo, it's a wrap, yo, it's a wrap, yo.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap. That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
People think I'm rapping, man, I'm rapping all the time.
That's a wrap. That's a
wrap it up.